This is Connor Buczek, and you're listening to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
On Schreiber. Sidearm whip. Scores.
Now in front. Cornell scores. Ball Rabel. Splits two and scores.
Kylie O'Miller showing off those shifty skills.
Kelly, not shy. Bounces one home. What a start.
Welcome to Pro Lacrosse Talk, the voice of Pro Lacrosse. I'm Hutton. He's Adam. Together, we're bringing you interviews with your favorite players and coaches, as well as news from all 4 professional lacrosse leagues. I'm here with Connor Buczek, midfielder of the Atlas Lacrosse Club in the PLL. Connor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Connor, you're a native of Cincinnati, Ohio, a rather untraditional area, for lacrosse, though it is growing immensely. When did you first pick up a stick and start playing lacrosse?
Yeah, so, Cincinnati's a non-traditional hotbed. Certainly, when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of lacrosse. But picked up a stick when I was about 5 or 6 years old. Both my parents were from upstate New York, so introduced me to it pretty young, and then just kind of ran with it from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and then so after you kind of took your towns from Ohio to Cornell, New York, to Cornell, where you finished your career with the Big Red. How was the recruiting process, and what ultimately made your decision to go to Cornell?
Yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind. It always is, especially now being a college coach and being on this side of it. I can tell, it's not an easy decision for 15, 16-year-old kids to decide, where they want to go to school and the implications that has. So for me, being on that side of it, I went and had the opportunity to see a bunch of great schools. I was fortunate that this sport affords you the opportunity to kind of leverage your way into some schools that maybe you wouldn't have got into on your own. So had the opportunity to go to a great school like Cornell, and more than anything, there's a lot of great places around the country, a lot of great people, a lot of good programs, a lot of great academic schools. More than anything, I love the camaraderie at Cornell. I could feel it tangibly right away. It was a close-knit locker room. People were challenged every single day at Cornell, and I thought that was what I wanted from my experience. I think for, an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kid, as you're going through this, at 3 or 4 years of college lacrosse, it's important to be molded and shaped by people that you believe in. A place like Cornell, it's maybe not the easiest place day in, day out, and that's, certainly for me, was all the better. I certainly faced my ups and downs throughout my career at Cornell, but after my 4 years, I wouldn't have traded it for anything. It certainly it helped me mature and helped me turn into the adult that I am.
That's great. And, you mentioned now you're an assistant coach there. You're entering your 4th season, second as a full-time staff member. What has it been like, returning to Cornell and coaching your alma mater?
It's been fantastic, for me. To be able to give that opportunity back to young men is something that I take, very seriously. I know that how much this place impacted me and, my maturation process, and improved, how I think I could have probably, ultimately becoming a man when you step on campus as an 18-year-old kid going through that process. It's certainly given me some opportunities that I didn't think I'd ever have. So for me to go through the process with young men that are looking to figure out where they're going to play their 4 years of college ball. It's certainly something very near and dear to my heart, something I hope that I can, speak well to. And so certainly we talk about the challenges that this place will face you with, but certainly, the support system and the opportunity that it affords you, if you just keep working through those small challenges, and eventually, hopefully, they feel the same way about their experience at Cornell that I did when I came out of it.
That's great. And how's fall ball been going for you guys? Are you still in the swing of things, or are you finished up?
Just scrimmaged Maryland on Sunday at
Awesome.
St. Anthony's, and it was a great competition for our guys. Obviously, that team's the model of consistency. They do a fantastic job of putting an incredible product on the field year in and year out. They play tough. They play hard. Obviously, talent's all over the field for those guys. So it was a great competition for our guys on Sunday, and then we've got basically one more practice. So we'll probably finish with a red-white. And then from there, we'll head into the individual sessions part of the fall.
Awesome. That's great. So kind of moving from Cornell to the PLL a little bit now. You're a member of the Atlas. So what about Paul Rabel's pitch got you interested in joining this new league before it's become what it is now?
Having the interactions with Paul that I had prior to him even pitching me was a big part of it. Being around Paul at different all-star games and just, in the lacrosse world, having conversations about sports business and lacrosse business specifically with Paul, certainly piqued my interest the first time I heard about it from him. He's a very intelligent guy, has a great sense for business, has a great sense for lacrosse, and specifically knows that niche very, very well. So when he approached me with this idea, I certainly was happy to jump aboard, just because I knew if there was someone who's going to do this and do this very, very well, it would be Paul and Mike.
Going off of that, you played for Coach John Paul in the Atlas in the inaugural season. What was it like playing under Coach Paul and, with this squad this first year?
I think we were all in this process of kind of figuring it out together. Coach has coached, the highest level of college lacrosse, and now coming into pro lacrosse and this new thing, we were all kind of, set out from training camp to figure it out, to figure out each other, to understand philosophies and how we wanted to play the game with the different rules and the shortened field and the shortened shot clock and all that sort of stuff. And he came into it with some revolutionary ideas. He was out. He clearly put a ton of time into, building a lacrosse strategy first and foremost, but also building a culture within the team. I wanted to make sure everybody knew each other and got to know each other well, and shared the core values and did little things like that helped build our camaraderie as a team as much as our on the field strategy. So, I think he came in from day one, from the first call I got from him. His excitement was palpable, and he was ready to rock and roll. And he certainly put, made sure that we were all on the same page moving forward. Start with some little team building exercises, and then through training camp, and then we were finally able to put on display, months later after we'd started this process.
That's awesome.
That's great.
And so you ended the season on a high note with a record 9-goal performance in Columbus. What was it like finishing kind of on that high in your home state, and what are you looking forward to for this first PLL offseason?
Yeah, it was exciting to end on a high note. It was disappointing that we weren't moving on after that to, in the playoff hunt. Certainly we had one more game, but I think it was a culmination. We finally got to the point that towards the end of that season we hit a stride. We're playing great ball, and it took us a little time to figure out exactly who we were as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so you started to see that come together, especially post All-Star break. Things were coming together well for us. So ultimately didn't do enough to get us in that top 4 and give us a chance at the championship. But was proud of the way the team came together and the way that we persevered through some ups and downs. And then, in that game in particular, I was excited. That was my last game with the Atlas. I wasn't able to play in the last one due to the USA commitments for the Indoor World Championships. But certainly to go back home to Ohio and have that performance was exciting for me.
Yeah, no, you put on a show. I mean, it was a record 9-goal performance. You set a record, and you kind of went out, personally on a high note. As Adam said. But let's talk a little bit more about your Ohio roots. We've seen the game grow rapidly in areas like Ohio in the past 10 years. What do you think lacrosse needs to do to see continued growth, and what is a hurdle that you think needs to be overcome?
Yeah, it's grown tremendously. Just, my time from a youth lacrosse player in Cincinnati. At that point, there wasn't more than, a handful of teams competing at the youth level. And so since that point, and as I moved on to college, it became a high school state-sanctioned sport, so that was a huge step forward for the game. I think the biggest hurdle, in terms of growth is going to be the accessibility to the game. You see some great programs out there that are making it accessible to more and more people. There's certainly a financial burden on families that, just to buy the necessary equipment to play the game, helmets and sticks and all that sort of stuff, are a pretty significant investment in the sport. So I think that's going to be our biggest hurdle. But you're seeing, across the board, you're seeing people trying to get over that hurdle, or at least mitigate it a little bit, whether it's, the Denver program that they're working with out there with Eric Law. And, I know Harlem Lacrosse and a bunch of different organizations like that are trying to spread the game, trying to actively find ways to get sticks in kids' hands that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. And I know, String King, for example, is coming out with sticks that are at that price point, and certainly donating them in masses to every program that they can to make sure this game is growing and that we're mitigating that hurdle as much as possible. I think it's still going to take some steps on that front, but it's great to see that, great people are making great strides on that front.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's something that I think we talk about a lot too, with lowering the barrier of entry. So I think that's some great points. But to finally wrap up, let's kind of go back to you mentioned the World Indoor Championships that took you away from playing in that final Atlas game. But what was it like, playing in that tournament and representing the U.S. in the Indoor Championships?
It was a pretty special experience. I really, really enjoyed it. Certainly, being on this side of it, I played in something similar in the U19 Championships when I was heading, I guess it was between my freshman and sophomore year in college. But doing it now as an adult, playing for the men's team, was a whole new experience. To be in a sport that we're not truly professional lacrosse players, where all of us have, or most of us have, other jobs that we do.
Sure.
It was a pretty cool experience to kind of have that routine of a true professional, where you'd get up and go to shoot around, and then you'd have lunch and do treatments, and then you'd take, a little downtime, and then you'd head back to the rink to play. I think that experience and getting to know those guys, and it was a fantastic group that we were with over there for about 2 weeks. It was very, very cool. For me, I'm fortunate on the home front, and certainly with my job at Cornell, that we had some fantastic assistants that were able to pick up the slack, so to speak, and help us or help me have as little to do over there as possible. Certainly stayed in the mix with some things, but for the most part, those guys handled the burden. So for me, it was a pretty surreal experience. It was awesome to play against the best of the world, and really, you see some of those guys that are at the top of the box game are incredibly, incredibly impressive to watch in person and to compete against. Some of those guys have skills that, you see a lot. I've got a little NFL experience. I've seen them in person, but just to watch all those guys on one floor at one time was very, very fun to compete against.
Awesome. Well, that kind of wraps up our main questions. We're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsor, and then we'll get into our 5 and 5 segment. Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast. We've been using Anchor for our podcast since the very start. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and better yet, it's free. They allow you to easily record and edit your podcast so it sounds great and send it out to all the major networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. Better yet, they connect you with advertisers so you can start making money from your podcast right away. So if you're interested in starting a podcast, download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Today's show is being brought to you in part by Stitcher Premium. You can use Stitcher Premium to listen to shows ad-free such as Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, My Favorite Murder, Wolverine the Lost Trail, or our favorite, The Fantasy Footballers. For only $4.99 a month or $34.99 a year, you get access to Stitcher Originals, bonus episodes, and comedy albums. Better yet, if you go over to Stitcher.com/premium and use the promo code lacrosse today, you can get 1 month free. So head on over to Stitcher, sign up, and get your free trial today.
And we're back, starting with the 5 and 5 for the lacrosse-related questions. So, Connor, starting with number 1, what are some pregame superstitions or routines that you have?
So as my career has gone on, I've gotten less and less superstitious.
Okay.
That's, for me, certainly I think back in college I used to try to wear the exact same clothes that I wore the week before if I played well. Or if I played well, I wouldn't retape my stick. Just little things like that I kind of carried for a long time. And then as kind of playing in the professional league, because, the travel and all these sort of other factors can kind of change your routine a little bit. I got away from it, and I realized that, the circumstances shouldn't really dictate how I feel like I'm going to play. If I didn't sleep as much because there was a delayed flight or a canceled flight or whatever it might be, or, certain other obligations made me get in late, or maybe the day of a game, they've kind of certainly made me lose those pretty quickly and just worry about showing up and performing rather than all the intricacies before your play.
Awesome. Number 2, what's a top song or most played song on your game day playlist?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it usually rotates.
Okay.
I'm one of those people that there's a couple, songs that I like and I'll refer back to from time to time, but more or less whatever's new.
Okay.
I'll play a song to death if I find something on Spotify that I really like. I might discover weekly or, whatever it is, the weekly playlist. If it comes out and I like it, I'll continue to listen to it, and that'll kind of be my pregame song.
Awesome. Number 3, who's a lacrosse player that you looked up to when you were younger and tried to emulate?
So when I was very young, I really loved watching Mikey Powell play. He was so electric and so fun to watch, and he couldn't be guarded by anybody. I loved just his style of play. I was a Syracuse fan growing up and watching them when they were going up to all the Final Fours in a row. And then as I grew up and became more of a midfielder and a downhill dodger, I really enjoyed watching Max Seabold. He's a guy I've gotten to know well in our network. And I really appreciate the way he goes about his business. He's one of the hardest workers out there. A guy that's just a beast both sides of the field. And so it was cool last week. I was able to spend some time with him and John Glenn when they got inducted to the Cornell Lacrosse Hall of Fame.
Oh, awesome.
The Cornell Athletics Hall of Fame, rather.
That's awesome. All right, number 4. What is your current lacrosse stick setup in terms of shaft, head, stringing, all that?
So I use, I'm a String King guy.
Yep.
So String King Mark II with String King mesh, and then their new carbon fiber shaft has been my go-to for the last, probably year or two. It holds up well, doesn't bend or break on me, but I might be in the market now. They're coming out with a Metal 3 shortly here, so that might be my new setup.
Awesome. And then the last of our lacrosse-related questions, where has been your favorite place to play or venue to play over your career, whether that's high school, college, or now in the pros?
Well, in college, I always, I think we have one of the best home fields in the country. I think Shilkoff Field is pretty special. It's certainly a place that holds a special heart in every Cornell lacrosse player's heart. But on the road, I really enjoyed playing in the Dome.
Yep.
Every 2 years, I always thought that was a fun atmosphere to play in. You can't hear much, and it just becomes a player's game pretty quickly. On the pro side of things, trying to think what certainly Homewood Field was pretty cool this year. That was one of the better stops on the tour. I thought that one was awesome. The DC United Field also was a very cool stadium. I thought I enjoyed the setup there.
That's awesome. Not gonna lie, in college, I went to a smaller D3 school. There was a YouTube video of you crushing it in the Dome. I think from like 2012 or 13. That our offense would play before half of our games to see you hit corner. So it's definitely something that I remember watching. And I'm a goalie, so I appreciated it. So.
Yeah, that was certainly. I always had some of my better games in the Dome. We even played a couple neutral games,
nice.
Not against Syracuse, obviously, but just in the Dome for the cover in February and March in upstate New York. But I certainly always enjoyed playing in there and had some of my better days in college in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Well, now let's go into like the off the field questions. My first one I'll ask you is Cornell related. What is your favorite class that you took while you were at Cornell?
There was a leadership and management sports class that I really enjoyed. Ended up doing a lot of work with that professor as I finished my undergrad, went into my MBA there. I think that was one of the more intriguing classes that I got the chance to take, and certainly is a topic that was near and dear to my heart.
Awesome, yeah, and I'm sure you're using it a lot now too in your coaching career.
Absolutely.
All right, number 2, what are some hobbies or activities you enjoy doing when you're not on the lacrosse field as a player or a coach?
I like to hang out. There's not a whole lot of downtime in between traveling for recruiting and playing in the summer and then coaching during the year. It's something that takes up a lot of time. So I'm a football fan. I love watching football on Saturdays and Sundays when I get the opportunity. I like to play some video games, and I've really started to enjoy reading a lot more since I graduated college. Reading for leisure at night has been a good way for me to kind of settle myself and get ready for bed.
Awesome. Well, that's actually kind of one of our questions. So number 3, what's a book on your bookshelf that you've read or are reading right now that you'd recommend to a teammate or a friend?
So there's one you can never go wrong with, the Hard Hat by John Gordon. It's 21 Ways to Become a Great Teammate. Yep. It's the story of George Biordi, and so it talks a lot about Cornell lacrosse and how our culture was built and the type of team that we're striving to be. So you can never go wrong with that one. I've read that numerous times, and whenever I need a little comfort or a little energy moving forward, that's always a good one. And then a couple of years ago, one of our strength coaches gave us the book Legacy about the All Blacks team. It's a pretty good read. I would highly recommend that one if you haven't read it before.
Yeah, and I really like too how the PLL kind of honored Buardi too with their award this year. I thought that was a really nice touch. All right, yeah, I'll have to check out Legacy.
I actually just got finished E-Town where I went, Connor. Just read that for their fall ball last year, so I have a copy of that if you want to borrow it, Hutton.
Okay, yeah, no, for sure. All right, so number 4, what is your favorite meal, and do you prefer to dine out, take out, or cook at home?
Oh, I'm a big-time dine-out guy.
Okay.
I can do takeout, but it's pathetic how little I cook. I cook far more often. Fortunately, when I'm at home, I have the great simplicity of Wegmans. Their Wegmans pre-made is about as good as it gets, and at $9 a meal, it's probably comparable to making it on your own. So that's that's as close as I come to cooking in most cases. When I'm dining out, probably my favorite meal. There's a pork chop dinner at one of the restaurants in Ithaca. That's probably one of my favorite locally.
Awesome. And finally, what is your ideal vacation spot?
My ideal vacation spot. Anywhere that has a beach and hopefully limited cell service. With playing as a side gig, that takes a lot of the summer weekends and opportunity to go travel. So outside of Christmas time, we don't get a whole lot of time off as a college lacrosse coach and a professional player. I've always talked with some of my friends about going to Greece or Mykonos or something like that and having a cool vacation over there. But for now, just on the to-do list, I don't see any time opening up anytime soon to go check out those places off this to-do list.
Awesome. Yeah, no, so pretty much you want more either East Coast or West Coast locations for the PLL Tour next year, maybe like a San Diego or something?
Yeah, I think a San Diego would be great. I think, the opportunity for, the best version of lacrosse to come for a weekend and only calling those sites, maybe once or twice is pretty paramount. I think to increase just how the visibility, I guess, of the sport in those areas is big. It's obviously growing. There's better and better kids coming out of those areas, with every passing year. And so you're starting to see superstars coming from that region. But I think the West Coast is great to build it, certainly from a travel perspective for me. I like East Coast ones, but, some combination of the two would be ideal.
Awesome. And then that wraps up our 5 and 5, but we usually like to end with our final question, and that is, what is some advice that you have for a young player looking to one day maybe play lacrosse professionally?
Sure. I think the best advice that I was ever given and that I could ever pass along is just have fun with it. Growing up, I can't remember how many games that I played in the backyard that weren't even necessarily, they were lacrosse related. My stick was in my hand, but, just messing around in the backyard, shooting, enjoying the process. Certainly something that served me well long-term, just, mindlessly shooting the ball and not really understanding how many reps I was really getting in the summer because it was my favorite thing to do. But even just playing games with their sticks and making up games and, baseball, like games with their stick and messing around with your buddies and doing the little things, but have fun with the sport. It doesn't always have to be on a field with 20 other guys that you have to play 6-on-6 or full field or any of those things to get better. Simply having your stick in your hand and being a kid can help translate directly to improving your skills. So I'd say keep your stick in your hand, have fun with it, play as much as you can, but it doesn't always have to be structured lacrosse.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, I think, for any young athlete, and I think what you guys are doing too with the PLL and professional lacrosse is kind of giving young kids right now a thing to aspire to. So that's awesome. Connor, remind listeners where we can find you on social media.
So I am at cbuse33 on Twitter. I think I'm at cbusick33 on Instagram.
Well, thanks, Connor, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Congrats on a terrific first season with the Atlas, and best of luck coaching Cornell this season.
Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate you having me on.